My name is Harm. I've been a Holacracy coach at bol.com, or Spark coach as we call it internally. This is my business card, but I might as well show you a different business card. I'm also working in logistics, so filling multiple roles and implementing Holacracy at bol.com is in addition to what you might call my daytime job, doing logistics. Been working at bol.com since 2008, so about 10 years. It's a very fast-growing company, and it's an e-commerce company. So it's a well-known e-commerce company in the Netherlands and Belgium. Some short facts. We have about half of the country is an active customer of bol.com. We have over 1 million or 1.4, I think, daily visits to our website. There's about 200 people at bol.com currently working. So why Holacracy? Why did we start looking into Holacracy, and what was the main reason, to start? It's mainly growth, organizational growth. When I started back 10 years ago, bol.com had about 100 or 150 people, so it scaled from that to about 10 times as large in the last 10 years. And somewhere in the middle, I found myself having a middle management role in the logistics department. And it's a department growing from, I don't know, like 5 people, and one morning I woke up and it was like 35. The company was growing like crazy, but it really lacked structure. And if you look at this is an interview with Daniel, our CEO. Everybody who's not Dutch speaking, it says structure is a dirty word around here. So this is, I think, a personal conviction of Daniel, our CEO, but it's also really embedded in the bol.com culture. So we've always had like a startup culture, flat org structure, lots of decision making, preferably in the bottom of the organization, but virtually no structure at all. So it ends with really being a flat organization. And that just doesn't scale beyond a certain point. So it's fine, I guess, with like 50 people. Maybe it's even 5 with 150 or even 300 people. But I can assure you that it doesn't really work very well in a company of 1,500 or even 1,200 people. So we needed some kind of structure, but we weren't really looking for the regular, corporate type of hierarchy. So we were really aiming for staying flat, have a lot of autonomy, a lot of decision making in lots of places in the organization. But you do tend to move towards a hierarchy if you don't act. We had some experience from 2009 onwards to 2011 of changing our organization into a more like team or goal-oriented structure with autonomous teams. But this was mostly in the IT department. You guys probably heard of it. It's called Scrum or Agile. In 2009, 10, and 11, we transformed the IT part of the organization from a functional hierarchy to a more team-oriented or purpose-oriented, you might say, or at least goal-oriented structure. With autonomous teams being able to do a lot of decision-making themselves and using Scrum Agile as a main way of working here. But this is only IT. IT changed a lot in those 2 years, and we were really happy with it. The way we transitioned was to have you might say, a dual org structure for a while. Trying to prove that the new structure was actually helping us better, and it did. We really liked it. What happened was that after 2 years of moving from functional departments into a more team-oriented way of working and org structure, people started to, let's say, disassemble the original structure by themselves because we just didn't need it anymore. All the work was being done in the new structure. This was a very smooth transition from old to new, and I was really looking for something like this, but then to do the same, trick, as you might say, but then in the more business-oriented part of the organization. But then Scrum is not, it's really meant for software development teams. It's just not a method that you can apply to every part of the organization. It's just not built around that. So I started looking into different things, and then I stumbled across some articles on Zappos and stumbled across this book. It was already mentioned, Getting Teams Done. And I know Diederik from study time back in the Maastricht University. But yeah, you might say we lost track of each other a little bit. I started reading this book and just gave him a phone call one night.
I think we had a beer.
We had a beer, a couple. Yeah, it was a long night. Started talking about these concepts in Holacracy, and there was so much in there that matched the need that we had in our organization. So I was completely convinced that this was what we needed. So we started to collaborate, Energize and Bol.com, to find out a way on how to implement this at Bol.com, and we wrote a pitch, but unfortunately we do not have a CEO like Tony Shea, who bets like most of his company and just goes all in a complete all-in approach to Holacracy. So we needed to find another way. Just having Diederik's book, or maybe even Brian's book, and all the information on Holacracy, and as good as a pitch that I was able to write, just wasn't enough to convince the board to do an all-in, top-down approach. It's just too risky in a company of this size. So no way that we would be able to do it like this. So we did it differently. We started with a pilot, just one or two teams. Somewhere in the middle of the organization, in my case, my own teams in the logistics department. Well, it's about 15, maybe 20 people that we got into this pilot implementation. Coaches from Energize helped us to get to know the Holacracy game. So we started small, but I also knew that it would be important to get support from above. So really did continue to start influencing, board members, tried to get them to put their weight behind this implementation. And it was hard. There was a lot of resistance. Mainly this one. It's an outside method, so who's going to write the book on how to run our company? A lot of resistance just based mainly on the fact that, we didn't think of this stuff ourselves. Who's going to tell us how to do our work? Also, this is a Dutch proverb. Just be normal, that's crazy enough. Or in Dutch, doe maar normaal, dan doe je al gek genoeg. It's a cultural thing. Dutch people are pretty down to earth. There's a lot of terminology in Holacracy that's a bit different or a bit out there. And there was a lot of resistance to that as well. So just objections to using this method just based on words like Holacracy itself or tension. And just had a little bit too negative feel to it. And some of the board members were looking more for a, let's say, down-to-earth approach. Can we just make our organization better, get teams working better? And also it felt a bit heavy on the bureaucratic side with the constitutional rules. And so these were all elements that just kept people from actually diving in and seeing what can Holacracy bring. So I had to do something. So it just was blocking progress. So we sort of rebranded it, and it's a bit of a trick, of course, because we just used the Bol.com blue color and our own font and gave it a bit of a different name. We sort of changed it into, it is something that at least partly got invented here. So it's a bit of a trick to get past, that resistance. And it did work. The moment we did this, we got more support, at least more support from the board. Yeah, and then there's the Constitution. So what do? There's no way to go all in, so there's no way for the CEO to sign the Constitution. We did it on the pilot level, but we never
signed it, right?
I signed, yeah, right. Yeah. But then what does that mean, This is a very, very powerful ritual, and I think in one of the past meetups, Brian shared a story with us on, this is, if you look at history, it's the rituals of, kings signing the Constitution and handing over the power to, the people, you might say. So what do you do to get a king to sign the Constitution if he just doesn't want to, And I've been looking at some maybe historical analogies that we can use. Anybody who knows what this particular moment in history, European history, was? Anyone? Very good. 100 points. It's, I think, 1789 is the 14th of July, and it's still a national holiday in France, 14 Juillet, and it's the turning point in the French Revolution. So I'm sort of looking for this, you know, because you need to start a movement from, you know, you might say the people to start and convince, you know, the king that it's time. Maybe it's time to do stuff differently. Maybe there's just too much risk to keep doing stuff the old way. And then a movement doesn't really have to be violent with all kinds of fire and storming of prisons in Paris. It can also look a little bit like this. This is a famous YouTube video called the Lone Nut, or Shirtless Dancing Guy, and it's about, you know, the dynamics of a movement. It's just one guy starting to do crazy dancing, but it's not about the guy. It's about the first followers. It's about the people who start joining, and it's about how convincing it is to have people joining a movement like this. And because people are joining, it's sort of, it seems to be okay, you know. So if other people are joining, then it's probably a good idea. And you see these people, you know, waving in their friends, you come join us. So they're actively promoting the movement, and there's more and more people coming in. And at some point, there's a tipping point, because the movement, the people dancing, the group is larger than the people not dancing. So it starts to be awkward to not join, you know. It completely changes, and you can see a lot of people coming in from the field. So this is what I'm looking for. You know, how can we start a movement like this within the company? And that's what we try to do. So we try to make active promoters out of the teams that we started off implementing Holacracy at first, and it worked, because really close to the first pilot teams, other teams actively started to ask, you know, can we do this? Can you please help us? And can we use this way of working and use this alternative organization method in our teams? And it helped us to give structure to the first cross-functional teams, to start, you know, launching teams that were not within the regular org structure, so not within functional divisions, but be able to start a team and have people from operations and marketing and customer service and IT, you know, join around a common purpose or goal. We were never able to do this really well in the old structure. Holacracy gave us a way to do this really well and help those teams. And this was an early success story, and it triggered even more departments and teams coming to us. You know, can you please help us, and can we also implement this way of working? And projects that launched that were looking for ways of working that came to us. Completely new areas within the organization, moving from operations to the more commercial side of it, marketing, new cross-functional teams, and it's been growing like this ever since. You might say it's like an ink stain, you know, growing from somewhere within and then moving on and on and on, and it's growing faster and faster. And then we came across, you know, how can we support this really fast-growing thing? I think our friends from Energized were at Bold.com for about a year, maybe a bit longer, and started, you know, advising us that maybe you need to build your own capability a bit more, because it's only limited that we can do from the outside, and it's growing so fast you have to be able to sustain this by yourself as well. So that's when we started to build our own coaching team, formed from part-time people like myself who picked up a coaching role in addition to their regular work. And they really, really liked it. We found these people from the first teams, and it's really an enrichment of their daily work. And Energize really helped us to form that first team of coaches. Yeah, and then the way to actually, you know, to market this movement, and what's in my opinion, you know, the best way to make it grow is to actively promote it from within. And at Bold.com we use a concept called NPS, or Net Promoter Score, and it's a way to measure customer satisfaction, but you can also use it to measure satisfaction with, let's say, using this way of working or alternative org structure. So we were looking at, you know, the question you ask here is, you know, how likely is it that you would recommend this way of working to colleagues or friends? And people who score it 9 or 10 are active promoters of it. But people who are scoring lower aren't active, they're actually detracting. And the important thing here is to figure out, why. So what's the reason behind this? What's the drivers for lower scoring? And that's the thing, it's a bit comparable to Mike's story. So we were actively seeking out those reasons and trying to improve. And since we don't have a all-at-once implementation, but we implement team after team after team, we can get a feedback loop going and try to improve, ourselves, the method a little bit. So we're looking for the promoters. We're looking for the people waving in their friends and please, we like this. You should try this also. So where are we currently? Our ink stain, if you will, increased from that first pilot team of about 15 or maybe 20 people to, I think this is somewhere around the point that Energized stopped actively coaching. Around 135, maybe 150 people. It's about 325 now in 40 teams. We have 6 part-time coaches at the moment. Our first full-time coach is starting next month. That's a real milestone for us, and we've been able to increase the Net Promoter Score a couple of times now by actively finding out, what is the reason for people to score low. The most important things that we've learned along the way in those two years, share some of these learnings with you. First of all, what's going well? The tactical meetings are, almost everybody agrees are great. They're fairly easy to learn. Virtually all people really love the ability to process their own tensions. We have a much better way of making cross-functional teams work in this new, alternative org structure than in the functional hierarchy that we had before. Glassrock, I think it's very important. It really helped us implementing because so much of the structure is already in the tool. So it sort of moves the process of doing Holacracy a bit to the background. It's easier to focus on the work itself. The teams just accept it faster. We had a really great start with Energize at the beginning because it allowed me to do, with only maybe 1 or 2 days a week, very low time investment, still be very effective in this implementation. But I also like it that further along the road we were able to do this ourselves, because internal people just have, no offense to Diederik, but they have a little bit of a better feel of the company culture. So what's the challenges? What still needs improvement? I've heard it a couple of times today and also yesterday. The governance meetings, all people agree that they're important, but most don't really like the formal, strict nature. We're still struggling with just the way that these meetings are being done. And we have an extra challenge here because we still have a dual org structure. The teams just don't really need it. You can still fall back a little bit on the old structure, so it makes it harder for us to make those governance meetings work. Still struggling, doing a couple of experiments here to find out, what's the better way for us to do it. We still need a coaching leader in the team, or yesterday in my table, somebody called it the asshole role. So who's, responsible for helping the team be sharp or to grow, to improve, who's triggering the people in the team. So if former managers or lead links, step out a bit too much, then that's not okay. Somebody has to take this role. I've also heard the third point, the Holacracy method focuses mainly on the hard side, or the structural side of team coaching, and less on the soft side of it. So, giving feedback. Do you actually dare, to do an impactful proposition in a governance meeting? So more the soft side. You really have to add extra attention there. And we have to improve our 360-degree feedback process. So in the dual org structure, we're forming completely new teams, but performance reviews were in the old structure. But if your, performance reviewer is not in your team, then how are you going to make that work? So we almost immediately needed to improve that point. We've made some steps, but we have to do a bit more on this. To sum it all up, I think one of the most important things for us to get going is to get a feedback loop going. Like in the lean startup kind of way, just start it. Start with teams, see what you learn, and make sure that you can improve really, really fast based on the feedback you get from teams. And I see that as a very because we just don't have an all-in at-once implementation. We actually get the opportunity to do it this way, to get that feedback loop going and do multiple iterations of the implementation itself, and make sure it gets better and better and better along the way. I think I'm more or less within the time boundaries. So happy to share the story with you today. Thanks again for being here. And now you've heard our story. I'm curious on the questions that you might have.
Great. First, do a round of applause. Thanks, Hans. And Peter will handle the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm handling the Q&A, and I get to go first. How about that? No, I've got one quick question. I think first, I think you tell the story really well, and you were the shirtless dancing guy, right? In the beginning, you were kind of the crazy guy dancing alone, really weird. But then other people started joining in, and I think they started joining in because you were dancing so damn well, right? Like you have a way of telling the story, so I think that's awesome. I have one question that I wanted to throw in, and then let's open it up. And my question is, it wasn't easy, it was kind of scary getting started. Why the hell are you so committed to this, personally? Like, what's in this for you?
Yeah, for me it's so you can say, I usually start my implementation presentations at bol.com with, do you think that if bol.com is twice the size it is now, that we're still equally effective and innovative? And then most people say no, absolutely no. It's just the fate of organizations that as you grow, you just start to suck more. That's one part, but the other part is, when I started at the company, it was only 100 people, and my personal contribution to the purpose of the company was so clear. It's, the distance is so short there, and you can, be yourself and really have a unique contribution to the goal of the company. That feeling is just awesome, and it starts to fade as the company grows. And what motivates me maybe most is the opportunity to offer, if somebody starts new in the company tomorrow, in a company of 12 or 1,300 people, can I give them that same feeling of, my contribution is unique and it's awesome what we're doing here.
Thanks, wonderful. I think we're going to start with you, David.
First, congratulate you. Really, you have a lot of courage of what you've done in the company. One thing that doesn't make too much sense to me is that I see in your Net Promoter Scores, they're not very high. And however,
not very high.
Yeah, 26 at the most is not a very high number. A good number for NPS is 70, 60. They're good numbers because it's an asset measure.
Yeah.
Okay? However, you have 40 teams or doing this. I mean, you have a lot of people asking you to do this. So, how do you compatibilize that? That you have a low promoter score, but there is other people going in. So,
thanks. I don't know if 22 is a low score, because there's no. I've never seen a benchmark for a Holacracy NPS. So I only know like customer satisfaction for like e-commerce companies, and we have like, I don't know, it's about 50 or something. So maybe it's not even that low. I've read somewhere that NPS is for like insurance companies. They're low as hell also, because who's enthusiastic about insurance?
0 is very good in Net Promoter Score.
Yeah.
Like if you benchmark it, like 0 is like excellent.
Yeah.
It sounds low because of the way of measuring, but 22 is actually, if you benchmark it, well, not on Holacracy, but on other NPS researches, 22 is extremely high.
also, maybe I'm measuring wrong.
I'm not sure, but maybe we should do a benchmark. So if anybody has the opportunity to do something like this, I'd like to cooperate. Yeah.
All right. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I really loved it. And regarding the NPS, it might be interesting to just check out the NPS of a conventional hierarchy, where, I mean, this is what we're measuring against sometimes, I guess. So that would be probably pretty negative. And my question is actually also about kind of the NPS, about the detractors, and I really loved your approach on asking them why. You know, there's a lot of value in that. And my question is whether you had a process of finding this, which learnings you maybe remember from this, and which consequences you took.
Yeah. So we do a quarterly review. So we ask the simple question: would you recommend this way of working to others? We have some deep dive questions that we do that. We do every 3 months. It gives us the ability to see, what teams are scoring lower, and also gives us the ability to go to those teams and ask them some follow-up questions. Most of the concerns are about governance. People just want to get on with the work and it feels, too heavy and distracting to do the governance meetings. That's an important one. We haven't solved it yet. And another one that was easier to solve is the coaching process, or the intake process for new teams, how to kick off teams. That process of starting up new teams wasn't very smooth in the beginning as well. We were able to improve that very fast based on the feedback of those teams. So that was a big driver in the beginning that we had a lot of influence on.
Show me some hands. Yeah, and maybe we can go in the back for a little bit because they get ignored completely, and then we can come back forward.
First of all, let's do the benchmark. It will be great. So let's set it up. But what about the kings at the moment, at this point of time?
Yeah.
Did they change their mind, opinion?
Nice question. Not completely yet. However, I did get a request from the Bolotcom board to look into their board meetings because they suck. They do it every Tuesday and it takes about 5 hours. And they're considering changing that, and they've approached me about it. So in my mind, this is the conviction of there's 325 people in the company already working with it. So there's no way around it anymore. And I have one strong supporter within the board, so I have sort of an insider there. I'm not sure if they'll do it. I still have to start the talks with them. But I really do see it as a positive encouragement. That it's really, the change management literature states that if you get past 30%, and that's sort of a critical point or critical mass. We should be around that point right now. So I really, really hope that literature is just that it really works out.
And they could still kill it, right? So it's a scary experiment.
It's scary as hell.
But we're learning a lot. Did you have a question?
First off, thank you. It's very good, talk that you went through. One of the questions I had is where you're saying what needs to be improved or where you're at now. And I think it's very intuitive with tactical meetings. They're very operational, and I think everybody seems to do quite well with that. My question is on the governance, where you're saying you need improvement. Is it because of the process, or is it because of the members not understanding the roles, accountabilities, purpose, policies, and so forth?
Yeah. I think because when we ask colleagues, do you agree that this is an important thing to do, or an important sort of right to have, and they all agree. It's just the process itself, the strictness of it. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I'm not completely sure. Just something Dutch people don't really like. I'm not completely sure about that. So it's mainly, the way to achieve the governance change that they're objecting, and it's the soft skill side of it. What I see a lot is people tending to stay on the safe side and doing governance proposals that really don't really, we change a word in one accountability sentence. That really doesn't make any impact at all. And then that doesn't really help, because other team members would probably go like, geez, do we need to spend all that time to clarify one word? So it's also getting rid of that fear. You have this new ability to really make impactful change. So what do you do to get people to really, really step into that and use it? And it's just the process itself. The governance meeting isn't really helping that, in my opinion. You have to do something else as a coach. Maybe it just takes time. We do see it improve when teams tend to practice longer. In tactical meetings, I see more that it's easy to adopt, and using new language like I have this tension that we should really also automatically helps them get to the deeper level, even if you don't do extra coaching there. I don't see that same dynamic in governance.
Yeah, and this is the conversation that we've been having, right? Like doing this experiment, like what's going on. And I'd say that it's probably more company culture, because we have plenty of Dutch companies that are taking to it. So I don't think that's quite it, although it's part of it. And as long as you have a dual structure, then governance is not the trusted place to process your tensions about structure. There is still a legacy system. And I think as long as that's in place, even if you're not using it, psychologically, people know that there are things that are decided in the management hierarchy, right? Yeah. So I think that's also kind of limiting the effect of it. But again, this is the conversation that we're having. The jury's still out there, right? So we're learning. I think we have room for a couple more questions. I'm going to go to you and then come to you.
Thanks for giving us an inside look on that implementation. You choose the bottom-up thing, and that makes it a bit different, because if you start from the top, I think it's easy for a manager to describe the expectations that he or she has for a team. But if you ask the team members without asking the manager, how did you make that first draft of governance? What was like the steps that you took? Did you do it in a creative way? What was the start for the team to really take the challenge to describe their own roles? Because I think that's a big challenge.
So usually the start is to describe what's going on in the team now. So there's a post-it workshop session where we identify what's the work that's going on now, and we do some division into roles with the team. We also do intakes with usually there's a former manager or team lead that we can ask some questions, and then they usually have a complete idea, and some of the times they come up with, they've drawn all these circles, and this is the way I want to do it. And we usually coach it into, thanks, valuable input, but let's engage the team as well. And most teams at Bol.com do something called OGSM. It's like OKR. It's like sort of a strategic plan for like a year or part of a year. There's a lot of valuable information in there as well. So last couple of months, what we usually do is to combine, what did you write down together with your team already as a sort of a strategic plan. Take that, and then also ask the team, what are the things that you're doing that are not in the plan, and then sort of combine that, and then that's just a starting point. And then explain to the team, it's only this, it's only a starting point, and you have, the governance meetings to iterate and bring it further.
We've got 1 minute left, so let's sneak in that last question there, and then.
Yeah, it's probably a question about competitive advantage, and more specifically, do you have already some evidence on cost effectiveness? Do you think with Holacracy you can become more cost efficient or cost effective than other systems? And what is the consequence of that if you do have it?
And we don't have any hard proof now that we're becoming more cost. We do measure it, so we measure stuff like what's revenue per head of the organization. We have some, but we also have some change programs trying to improve that. Besides, the organizational change. So you can also change, tools that people use to be more productive. So it's very difficult to pinpoint, what's the exact contribution of only Holacracy when you're doing so much at the same time. I like some of the measurements that Mike presented. So what's your decision cycle time, stuff like that. We measure things that are similar. We see some positive improvements there. Besides, you have like engagement surveys and stuff like that, so that's also a bit more on the soft side. employee satisfaction or engagement, we see positive effects there. But those aren't really quantifiable in terms of what's the cost benefit of the company.
Have you had like radical?
I think we have to stop there. Like we're over our minute. So again, like always, we're here for the rest of today and tomorrow. So find Harm to talk to him. But for now, I'd say a big round of applause for the dancing guy.